This happened a few months ago. I was sitting at my desk, surrounded by my favorite art supplies. As a freelance graphic designer, I spent a lot of time working from home. Being newly single, I often felt lonely. I sought out new friends and inspiration in online forums, particularly one focused on urban exploration. I posted about my adventures, sharing photos and stories. Members encouraged me with comments. One day, I got a message from a user named Urban Ghost. "Careful there. Not all places are as they seem," they wrote. It caught me off guard. I wanted to trust this user, but their words felt too close to home. I didn't think much of it at first. As days passed, our chats grew more frequent. Urban Ghost commented on my photos with details that made me anxious. They noticed things that I never mentioned. I typed out replies, hesitating, then deleted them. My heart raced with each ping of my phone, unsure if I should keep chatting or walk away. Somehow I felt drawn in. At night, I started hearing something outside my window. It sounded like scratching. I convinced myself it was just the wind. But I could not shake the feeling something was watching. One day, a package arrived without a return address. My heart raced as I opened it. Inside was a small old key. My hands shook. The moment I touched it, I felt cold. I wondered if this was all linked to my online presence. Maybe someone I knew was invading my privacy. I double-checked my social media settings, ensuring everything was private. Still, Urban Ghost persisted. They seemed to know exactly where I'd gone exploring last. I panicked. Were they really watching me? Were they really? One night, after sharing photos from an abandoned factory, Urban Ghost sent a chilling response. "You shouldn't have gone there." I stared at the screen, heart pounding. I couldn't shake the idea that they were always one step ahead of me. The tension grew unbearable. I felt like I was being followed inside my own home. Late at night, I jumped at every creak in my apartment. I couldn't sleep, haunted and paranoid. Urban Ghost's messages twisted in my mind. I typed back, trying to sound brave, but I felt afraid. Then one evening, Urban Ghost sent a message that twisted my stomach. "I can see you." Panic seized me. I typed back, "What do you mean?" But before they responded, I heard a knock at my door. My heart stopped. I slowly turned towards it, fear flooding through me. The door creaked open. I felt frozen, my heart thudding loudly. I took a hesitant step forward, whispering, "Is anyone there?" My breath hitched when I saw a shadow move past my doorway. Darkness washed over me, and I felt icy fear grip my chest. I stood there, unsure of what to do, wondering who or what Urban Ghost really was. I forced myself to take a breath, trying to shake off the overwhelming fear that wrapped around me like a fog. I had lived alone for years, but in that moment, I felt more vulnerable than ever. I called out again, "Hello?" A part of me wanted to bolt out of my apartment, to escape this nightmare, but my feet felt glued to the floor. Then I heard a rustling sound, like something was shifting in the shadows. My eyes strained to adjust, but the darkness felt oppressive. I took a shaky step backward, and that's when I saw it. A sliver of light slipped through the edge of the door frame, illuminating a distorted figure standing just outside. My breath quickened as I inched closer, squinting, hoping my eyes were deceiving me. My heart raced. "Who are you?" I shouted, trying to sound tough. There's no answer. Just the echo of my voice hanging in the air as an unsettling silence enveloped me once again. I glanced at my phone, desperate for a message, a distraction from reality. But it felt like eternity waiting for a response from Urban Ghost. My fingers trembled as I typed, "Someone's at my door. What should I do?" The response came almost instantly. "You have to let them in. You have no choice." Instinct kicked in, and I knew I couldn't stay there. I turned to my living room and headed for the window. With a glance back at the door, I saw the shadow move again, this time reaching out toward the doorknob. Panic washed over me. I couldn't wait to find out who, or what, was behind that door. I rushed to the window and pulled it open. That's when I felt it. Cold air rushed in and I heard the faintest whisper, "You can't escape me." I stumbled back, heart racing faster than ever. I slammed the window shut and locked it tight. though I didn't know what good it would do. My mind raced with thoughts of Urban Ghost, of the warning I should have taken seriously. I glanced back at my phone, aimlessly scrolling through past messages. I remembered the key from the box, the sudden chill it had brought, the strange familiarity of Urban Ghost's words. I felt like a puppet, my strings tangled by someone who seemed to know every move I'd made. Then I noticed something on my desk, something I hadn't seen before. It was a note, folded neatly, under my art supplies, as if it had always been there. My hands shook as I picked it up, and I opened it carefully. The handwritten note read, "I can help you, but you must trust me. Meet me at the factory tomorrow night. Bring the key." My heart dropped. The factory. Urban Ghost. I felt trapped in a web of intrigue, one that seemed to be pulling tighter around me. Who was helping? Who was watching? I needed answers, but I also felt a paralyzing fear. What if I was walking into a trap? But I couldn't ignore the urge to find out the truth. Tomorrow night, everything could change. I stared at the note, my mind racing with thoughts of what lay ahead. I had to decide if I would face my fears or let them consume me. And then, just as I set the note down, my phone pinged again. I froze, my heart in my throat, as the familiar name illuminated the screen. Urban Ghost had messaged me once more. "Are you going to join me at the factory?" The next day dragged on like a bad dream. I could barely focus at work, my mind spinning with thoughts of the factory and Urban Ghost. Every time my phone buzzed, I jumped. I replayed the note in my head, the quiet chills creeping up my spine. "Bring the key." The words echoed, twisting into a knot of anxiety in my gut. After a long, agonizing day, the sun sank low in the sky. Shadows slipped into my apartment, wrapping it in gloom. I paced back and forth, fighting panic. Should I go? Was it all a trap? What did I really know about Urban Ghost? Nothing, except that he seemed to know too much about me. As night fell, I reluctantly pulled the frayed key from my coat pocket. It felt heavy in my palm, like a weight that I could drop, or a violation of my privacy. My breath caught. I had the opportunity to break free from this madness, but facing it felt equally daunting. Time passed, and finally, it was time to leave. I slid the key into a small pouch around my neck, taking a deep breath before stepping outside. The streetlights flickered ominously as I walked, the city swallowing me in darkness. My heart thudded in sync with each step. The factory loomed in the distance, a hulking silhouette against the night sky. I felt a chill creep down my spine. This was it. I wasn't sure what awaited me there, but I had to confront whatever it was. I was in too deep to turn back now. As I neared the factory, I spotted something weird. A flickering light danced from a broken window high above. I hesitated, my instincts screaming at me to run. Something compelled me to move closer, and I didn't want to appear weak. I squared my shoulders and pushed through the heavy metal door. Inside, the air was thick with dust and silence. I fumbled with my phone, illuminating the dark corners of the abandoned building. I called out, my voice echoing, "Urban Ghost, are you here?" My own words felt false in the eerie stillness. That's when I heard it. A whisper, coming from the shadows. "You came." My heart dropped. I swung around to face the sound, and there he was. A figure obscured by darkness, his eyes glowing bright in the low light. Was he really here? I had to decipher if he was friend or foe. My body tensed as I tried to read his expression. "Do you have the key?" he asked, his voice low and eerie. I hesitated. The clutch of fear nearly paralyzed me. Should I give it to him? What would it unlock? I realized that I had no clear plan, just a restless desire for answers. "Why am I here?" I managed to ask. He stepped closer, and I noticed a glint of something metallic in his hand. My breath caught. Suddenly I was hit with the weight of uncertainty, realizing I had made a mistake by coming here. Just then, a loud bang echoed through the factory, and the lights flickered off. Panic surged through me. "What was that?" I shouted, but his shadowy figure began moving toward the sound. Then everything went dark. The silence pressed in around me. I reached for my phone, fumbling to switch on the flashlight. My hands trembled as I hoped for some sign of safety. Instead, I was met with nothing but the oppressive darkness and the distant echo of the factory's creaks. I forced myself to breathe steady. I needed to stay calm. The sound of footsteps filled the void, and my heart raced as they approached. Urban Ghost, I croaked, the name feeling foreign on my tongue. Stay where you are, he ordered when I finally caught a glimpse of his outline moving back toward me. His glowing eyes shifted, watching me closely. It's not just a meeting, you know. You've stepped into something much deeper. What do you mean? I took a step back, feeling the wall's cold metal against my back. What do you want from me? I need you to understand the key, he said, his voice barely above a whisper. And why it's so important. He extended his hand, revealing a small, brass object, a lock-picking tool that gleamed unevenly in the flashlight's beam. It's not just for this door, not at all. A creeping dread settled in my stomach. What door? I asked, barely able to keep my voice from shaking. My mind raced, flashing the word trap over and over like a warning sign. They call it a door, he said, stepping back slightly. From one reality to another. Just then, the factory door burst open. Heavy footsteps stomped down the hall, echoing like a fierce heartbeat. My eyes darted toward the source, panic swelling within me. Two shadowy figures entered, their silhouettes blocking out the faint light from outside. They didn't seem friendly. Urban Ghost's expression shifted to one of urgency. We need to leave, now. He took my arm, pulling me away from the incoming threat. I instinctively tugged free, feeling that he was no longer my ally, but a means to an escape. What are you doing? I asked, my voice rising. Trust me, he shouted, glancing over his shoulder. They're here to take the key. Before I could respond, Urban Ghost dashed down a side corridor, leaving me with a choice, chase after him or face whoever was coming. The footsteps grew louder, echoing through the dark as I weighed my options. I couldn't stay. I sprinted after Urban Ghost, heart pounding. Wait! I called into the cold void. But he didn't stop. I turned a corner and skidded to a halt, the beam of my flashlight revealing a stairwell leading down into darkness. That's when I heard a low growl behind me and froze. Someone, or something, was right there. I didn't have time to think. I bolted down the stairs, the key pressed tightly against my chest, the only remaining connection to my sanity in this madness. At the bottom, I glanced back just in time to see a figure emerge from the shadows, their eyes glimmering with menace. I had stepped deeper into the unknown, and the chase was far from over. I stumbled at the bottom of the stairwell, nearly tripping on loose debris. The air felt thick and stale, and even though my flashlight illuminated the space, shadows lurked in every corner, twisting shapes into monsters. I could still hear those heavy footsteps above me, echoing off the metallic structures. They searched for me, and I had no intention of giving them what they wanted. The realization prickled at the back of my mind. Somehow, I was at the center of something huge, something terrifying. I focused on my surroundings. There was a flickering light down a corridor ahead. As I approached, the source became clearer. A rusty overhead bulb struggled to stay alive, casting weak light onto the ground. I needed to get out of this factory. Urban Ghost, I whispered, hoping he was still nearby. No response. I took a deep breath and moved forward, my heart racing with the thought that I was now fully alone. Then I heard it again, a low growl, followed by a scraping sound. It spawned a cold wave of terror that pooled in my stomach. Something was in this darkness with me, and it wasn't friendly. I rushed toward the flickering light, desperation pushing me onward. As I entered the illuminated area, I saw a pair of double doors at the far end. They looked old and worn, barely hanging on their hinges. I had no clue where they led, but anywhere was better than this suffocating space. Just as I reached for the handle, the growl escalated to a snarl, reverberating off the walls. I spun around, the flashlight beam catching the outline of a creature, a twisted, nightmarish shape with jagged edges and eyes that seemed to swirl like smoke. Panic surged through me as I realized I was trapped. The only way out was through those doors, or I would face whatever horror that thing had in store. I turned back to the doors and pulled. They budged but didn't fully open, trapped by years of rust and neglect. The creature lunged, and in a sudden burst of adrenaline, I pushed harder, finally forcing my body through the narrow gap. I landed on the other side, tumbling across a cold concrete floor. I scrambled up, ready to bolt, but the sight that greeted me stopped me dead. The room was filled with strange machinery, bathed in an eerie glow. Monitors flickered, showing static-filled images. The air smelled oddly sweet and burnt. At the far end of the room stood a large console, its screen blinking erratically. I approached cautiously, trying to make sense of what I was seeing. One of the screens finally stabilized, revealing a series of names, dates, and symbols that made absolutely no sense to me. My heart raced as I scanned the information. Was this a record? A log of some sort? Just as I stepped closer, I heard a crash behind me. The doors I had squeezed through flew open, and there in the doorway stood Urban Ghost, panting and eyes wide. "They found me," he said, urgency lacing his voice. "We don't have much time." Before I could ask what he meant, the lights flickered and died, plunging us back into darkness. In the pitch black, I felt my pulse heighten. I could hear his breathing beside me, but the chaos outside was closing in, and it was clear we were running out of options. Through the silence, I could hear whispers coming from the other side of the room, too soft to make out but full of malice. I found myself asking a terrifying question. What if those whispers belonged to souls trapped within this strange reality? And why was my name on that screen? Everything went dark, and for a moment, my mind raced. The whispers grew louder, swirling around like shadows threatening to engulf us. I couldn't tell if it was my imagination or if something else, something alive, was in that darkness with us. "Urban Ghost," I whispered, my voice shaky. "What do we do?" "I don't know," he admitted, sounding frantic. "We need to find light. Somehow." I felt my way along the console, fingers brushing over cold metal and glass. My heart pounded in the silence. I could still hear the faint growl from moments before, waiting for its chance. Just when I thought I'd imagined it, I caught a shudder from the wall behind us. The thing was getting closer. "Follow me," Urban Ghost said suddenly. His voice guided me away from the console. "I think there's another way out." We moved slowly, inching forward in darkness. I felt his hand on my back, steering me as I kept the flashlight pointed where I thought the room ended. The whispers faded again, but I couldn't shake the feeling that something was lurking just beyond the beam of light. We reached a corner of the room, and Urban Ghost pressed his body against the wall. A faint glow peeked out from a door slightly ajar. "There," he said, relief flooding his voice. With a quiet shove, he pushed the door wider. The soft glow illuminated more machines, wires tangled like vines, and strange symbols etched into every surface. The air felt different here, charged, almost electric. As we stepped through the doorway, a loud crash resonated from where we had come. Urban Ghost and I spun around just in time to see the threshold shudder, the creature forcing its way through. "Run!" Urban Ghost shouted. We sprinted into the next room, moving deeper into the heart of the factory. Breathless, I barely took in my surroundings. My focus narrowed to escape, to whatever lay at the end of this twisted maze. "Is this place designed to trap people?" I gasped out, trying to keep pace with Urban Ghost. "I think it's more than that." His voice trembled. "This factory, it's a front. All of this. It's about harnessing something." I didn't want to consider that. All I wanted was to escape. "What do you mean?" "The whispers," he continued, glancing back at the door. "They're not just random. They sound like—" He hesitated. "Like voices pleading for help." I felt cold dread settle in my stomach. "Help? From who?" "From whatever this place is built on," he said. "We're intruders, and they're trapped here." Before I could respond, we turned a corner, crashing into another room piled high with old equipment. I squinted around, trying to catch my breath, but the weight of the shadows pressed in around us. Old photographs hung on the walls, faded but recognizable. They were of people, hundreds of faces staring out at us, each one with a sense of loss. "I found something," Urban Ghost said, grabbing a piece of paper half buried under debris. "Look." He held it up to the faint light. It appeared to be a list, similar to the one I'd seen before, but it contained more than just names. There were locations next to each one. "Wait," I wondered aloud. "Is this tracking them?" Urban Ghost nodded, eyes wide with realization. And maybe finding us next if we don't hurry. Just then, the growl echoed again. This time closer, almost daring us to stay. I didn't need to look back to know it wasn't far behind. I wanted to scream as adrenaline surged, but the urgency pressed us onward. With the paper clutched in hand, I had a chilling thought. Wherever we were headed didn't seem safe, but we had no choice. Then everything changed again. The room around us began to shake, machinery rattling as if awakened from slumber. We needed to move, and fast. I pulled Urban Ghost toward a door at the far end, ready to plunge into another unknown. But just as I reached for the handle, I hesitated. The pull of the darkness from behind was too strong, and I had a feeling whatever was hunting us was about to strike. The door rattled under my grip, and I felt a surge of panic. Whatever hunted us was almost there. I yanked the door open, and we dove into the unknown. The second room was cramped and cluttered. Old control panels loomed over us, their flickering screens casting ghostly reflections. The air smelled damp, and a low hum vibrated through the walls. I could hardly see past Urban Ghost, but I felt the frantic energy of his presence. "We need to find a way out, now," I urged, my voice thick with fear. He nodded, eyes scanning the cluttered space. As we advanced, the whispers returned, louder and urgent, clawing at my ears. It felt as if they pulsed from every layer of the factory, like the building itself was alive, harboring secrets and sorrow. Then, something caught my eye. At the far end of the room, a large window revealed a dimly lit chamber. Inside, I could see... shadows? No, not just shadows. I squinted, heart racing. They looked like shapes. People standing silently. "Urban Ghost, look," I whispered, pointing toward the window. He followed my gaze, momentarily distracted. "What is that?" he breathed, dread etching itself deeper in his features. Before I could answer, the growl pierced the air again. It was closer, more pronounced. We had to move. But a deep instinct urged me to take a closer look first. I felt guilty for hesitating with danger so near. "We can't stay here," Urban Ghost insisted. His urgency snapped me back to reality. "Okay, fine." I reluctantly turned my back to the window, ready to flee. But just as I did, a frantic scraping noise echoed from behind the glass. I twisted back, my heart in my throat. There was movement, figures writhing against the glass. They pressed their faces toward us, their expressions twisted with pain. "Help us!" They seemed to scream silently, mouths moving but no sound escaping. It was haunting. I took a step back, my breath hitching. "Did you see that?" I gasped. They need help!" "Forget them!" Urban Ghost shouted. "This whole place is a trap, just like we thought." But it was too late. The impact of those faces haunted me, and urgency warred with empathy. I couldn't just leave them. Yet staying meant risking our lives. Fear gripped me like a vice. Before I could decide, the door we had just entered flung open with a violent crash, splintering against the wall. The creature charged into the room, darker than even the shadows, its eyes glinted with a primal hunger. "Run!" Urban Ghost shouted again as he grabbed my arm, pulling me back toward the doorway. We bolted down a narrow hall, the weight of our footsteps echoing behind us. The air grew thicker, making it harder to breathe. My mind raced, scrambling for a plan. What if we could rescue those trapped figures? Were they part of this nightmare? "Urban Ghost, we can't just leave them," I yelled, desperation creeping into my voice. "They're gone." "It's too dangerous," he retorted, still pulling me along. Then my eyes caught something on the wall. A series of symbols, almost like a map etched into the structure. I skidded to a halt. "Wait! Look here!" Urban Ghost turned, frustration flickering across his face before he noticed what I pointed at. "What is it? Maybe it leads to another exit? Or somewhere we can help?" I turned to him. His eyes narrowed, weighing the options. "Fine. Then let's figure it out fast," he replied, glancing back with fear still evident. We stepped closer, tracing the lines with trembling fingers. The growl from behind us grew louder, reverberating through the air as if sensing our resolve. That's when I realized we weren't simply escaping. We were making a choice. And then, a new direction beckoned. and I had to decide. Run for our lives, or risk it all to uncover the truth behind the horror of this factory. The symbols twisted and turned, leading to a large circular shape that glowed faintly. My heart raced as I realized it wasn't just a map. It was a layout of the entire factory, and it looked like there was a hidden passageway just beyond the room we had just fled. "Urban Ghost, look at this!" I pointed again, feeling a thrill of hope. "There's a way we can get through." He stepped closer, eyes wide as he absorbed the information. "If that's true, we might find those people, or at least a way out." Just as he spoke, the growl pierced through the air again, shattering our focus. This sound was different, more menacing. Panic washed over me, and I took a step back. "We don't have time! We need to decide now!" Urban Ghost urged, anxiety rushing through his words. I exchanged a glance with him, fear mixing with determination. I couldn't shake the haunting faces we'd seen, the silent screams etched into my mind. But the roar of the creature demanded my immediate attention, drawing me back to the present threat. "Let's move!" I blurted, breaking into a run down one of the paths on the map. Urban Ghost followed, our footsteps echoing rapidly through the narrow corridor. The passage twisted, and the air changed. It became colder and still, as though time stood still. Behind us I could hear the beast's growl grow fainter, but that only made me more uneasy. Maybe it was deciding where to strike. As we reached a door at the end of the hallway, Urban Ghost hesitated. "What if it's worse on the other side?" I swallowed hard. "We won't know unless we look. Let's open it." We stood side by side, hands hovering over the handle. Together, we turned it slowly. The door creaked open, revealing a dim room filled with old machines and stacks of forgotten boxes. "Looks like a storage area," Urban Ghost said, scanning the room. But even as he spoke, I felt a prickling sensation at the back of my neck. An instinct was rising in me. I stepped further inside, poking through the boxes and debris. Something caught my eye. Sitting on a dusty table was a small notebook, its cover worn out, but the pages still intact. "Urban Ghost, come check this out," I called. He joined me, looking over my shoulder as I opened the notebook. It was filled with sketches, strange markings, and hastily scribbled notes. Some of it looked like a backstory to the factory, a dark history filled with accidents, experiments, and lost souls. "That's not just a map," Urban Ghost said, tracing a line with his finger. "This is a record of everything that's happened here." Then I found a page marked with something that made my blood run cold, an entry about the figures in the glass and how they had once been employees of the factory. "They were trapped in the machinery. They never escaped," I gasped. The weight of reality crashed over me. Suddenly, a loud crash echoed from the hallway, followed by heavy footsteps that shook the ground. The beast was close. "Where do we go now?" Urban Ghost asked, urgency creeping back in. I frantically flipped through the notebook for answers, but the sounds behind us grew more threatening. Then everything went still. The silence broken only by the low groan of the walls as if they were holding their breath. Urban Ghost leaned closer, eyes darting around. "I think it's here." I grabbed his arm. "We have to make a choice." With another crash, the door we had just come through buckled under the weight of the creature's force. "Run!" I shouted, adrenaline flooding my system as I tore towards the back of the room. But the way was blocked. Panic surged in my chest as I turned back to Urban Ghost. "What now?" Just then, I noticed something gleaming in the shadows, a hidden door at the back of the room barely visible. I dashed toward it as the growl intensified, urging Urban Ghost to follow. "Get in!" I shouted, fear making my voice sharp. But the moment we approached, I heard laughter echoing, high-pitched and taunting. "Someone's inside," Urban Ghost whispered, horror dawning on his face. We had no choice but to find out who awaited us beyond that hidden door. I hesitated, the laughter tugging at my insides like a cold breeze. "What if they're not friendly?" I whispered back, keeping my voice low. Urban Ghost shook his head, eyes scanning the rest of the room. "We don't have time to think. If we stay out here, we'll be easy prey." He was right. I took a breath and pulled the hidden door open, revealing a narrow passage that was darker than the previous room. The laughter grew louder, echoing down the corridor, bouncing off the walls like a sinister melody. "Let's go," I urged, and we slipped inside, closing the door behind us with a soft click. The air in this new space was thick and musty, filled with the scent of old machinery and something sweetly decayed. I couldn't shake the feeling that we were being watched, as if eyes were drilling into us from the shadows. As we crept deeper, the laughter faded slightly, but it was replaced by whispering. Choppy breaths came from above, and I looked up, scanning the walls. Shadows danced just beyond the flickering light, making my heart race. "Did you hear that?" I asked, my voice barely more than a whisper. Urban Ghost nodded, wide-eyed. "It's like we're not alone here." Just then, a figure darted past us in the dark. My instincts kicked in, and I bolted, pulling Urban Ghost with me. "Run!" We stumbled down the passage, the walls closing in on us, the cold air wrapping around us like a vice. I barely glanced back, but I could feel the presence behind us, hot on our heels. Another doorway appeared, barely illuminated. "There," I pointed, praying it led to safety. We rushed through, and the door slammed shut behind us. This new room was vast and filled with strange equipment, tangled wires, old monitors flickering with static, and machines that looked like they hadn't worked in years. In the center stood a round table, and upon it lay several faded photographs. I stumbled closer, picking one up. The faces staring back were familiar. It was them, the figures we had seen in the glass. They looked so different, alive and full of hope. But one photo caught my eye. It was daytime, sunlight streaming through an unseen window, and the date scribbled at the bottom sent chills down my spine. The day before the factory's downfall. "What does this mean?" Urban Ghost asked, his voice shaking. I struggled to process it. This place, this whole factory, seemed like a trap. Maybe they were working on something they shouldn't have. A sudden rumbling disturbed our thoughts, and the ground shook. The machines hummed to life, the flickering monitors lighting up one by one. A figure appeared on the far side of the room, backlit by the screens. It turned slowly, and the laughter rang out again, filling the air with an unsettling energy. "Welcome back," the figure said, voice dripping with mockery. "I've been waiting for you." Fear twisted in my stomach. I had thought we were here to find answers, but it felt more like we were heading straight into a trap. "Who are you?" I demanded, trying to sound brave. The figure stepped forward, and the light revealed a twisted grin that sent a wave of dread crashing over me. "That's a question best saved for another time." Before I could respond, the ground heaved beneath us again, and everything went dark. When the darkness dissipated, I found myself sprawled on the floor of a different room, one that felt oddly familiar. I blinked against the harsh lights overhead, disoriented. Urban Ghost lay beside me, groaning as he pushed himself up. "What just happened?" I murmured, my heart still racing. I don't know. It's like we switched dimensions or something," he replied, glancing around. The walls were lined with familiar machinery, but they hummed softly instead of threateningly now, seemingly harmless. I stood, still shaken. Was that a dream? As my eyes adjusted, I noticed something in front of me. A glass wall separating us from a corridor filled with indistinct shadows moving past. I leaned closer to examine it, anxiety twisting my stomach. What if we didn't escape? Urban Ghost's voice trembled at my side. What if this is just another part of the trap? I nodded, that creeping sense of doom washing over me again. I ran a hand over the glass, fingers tracing its surface cautiously. The shadows on the other side flickered, moving faster now. Whispers filled the air like a song from a long-forgotten past, a sound both beautiful and haunting. "What's behind there?" I asked, eyeing Urban Ghost. I think it's where they keep everyone," he replied. "The ones trapped. The souls we saw at the factory." Heart racing, I turned back to the glass wall. I felt the weight of their despair seeping through the barriers. What if we can help them? Help them how? We don't even know how we got here, Urban Ghost insisted, pacing nervously. From the corridor came a series of low growls, and I stepped back instinctively. Whatever it is, it's coming this way. We stepped away from the wall, and as we did, two shadows formed before us, 2 figures emerging from the dark. With a chill, I realized they were no longer just shadows. They looked like people, their features obscured but their presence undeniably human. Were they here to help or condemn us? "Enough!" one of them cried, voice echoing eerily around us. "You should not have come here." "What do you want?" I shouted back, throat tight with fear. "Answer us," the second figure demanded, stepping forward. Their faces shifted between bitterness and sorrow, bearing the burdens of whatever had kept them trapped. "What do you seek? Why do you wish to know about the factory?" The thought struck me. "We want to save you," I blurted out, surprised by my own conviction. "We want to find a way to release you." "To save us?" the first figure echoed, their voice laced with incredulity. "You think you can free the lost? Maybe I can find the key," I stammered, my mind racing back to the brass object resting in my pocket. Urban Ghost glanced at me, eyes wide. "You think it could be connected?" Before I could respond, the figures retreated slightly, their demeanor shifting. "Then you must act quickly. There are forces that thrive on despair, and they will not let you escape easily." As the shadows loomed closer, I felt a rush of determination welling within me. I pulled out the key, feeling its sharp chill against my skin. "This key, you said it has power. Show us the door that leads to release." With that simple phrase, the air crackled around us, and the shadows shifted violently, revealing a doorway just behind them. It shimmered, the edges pulsating with an otherworldly light. "Go now," the second figure urged, voice filled with urgency. "You may find your way back to the light, but you must choose wisely." "Are you ready?" I asked Urban Ghost, who looked both terrified and resolute. He nodded slowly, determination settling on his features as he stepped forward. "We have to try." Gripping the key tightly in my palm, we crossed the threshold. The moment I touched the door, a rush of cold air surged through, sending shivers down my spine. Together we stepped inside, and suddenly the air thickened as we were transported, the colors and sounds swirling around us. Fragments of memories flashed before my eyes, scenes of the factory and the shadows, blurred faces reaching for us, grim but hopeful. Then just as quickly as it started, we were thrust back outside into the cool night air, the factory standing silent before us. But the key slipped from my grip and clattered against the ground, glinting under the moonlight. "What just happened?" Urban Ghost gasped, scanning the now empty factory. I don't know." My heart thudded as I glanced back at the building, knowing deep down that it wasn't over yet. Before I could contemplate our new reality, the whispers resumed in the breeze, echoing faintly from the direction of the factory. A part of me felt the pull of those lost souls still trapped within. My hands trembled as I stared at the key, all too certain that this journey wasn't finished. "The key," I whispered, thoughts swirling with uncertainty. "It means there's so much more to uncover. We need to go back." Urban Ghost turned towards me, eyes wide. "What do you mean?" "I mean, we were meant to find the truth, weren't we? We can't just leave them there." As the shadows danced closer with an allure of both danger and desperation, I felt my resolve hardening. Maybe we hadn't completely escaped after all. I picked up the key, meeting Urban Ghost's bewildered gaze. "This is just the beginning." And with that, we turned back towards the factory, hearts racing with the knowledge that each answer we sought would only lead us deeper into the darkness and uncertainty that awaited within.